Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing this morning? I got another prompt this morning. So those of you that were with us last week, you're probably thinking, okay, wait a minute. Last week you had an umbrella,
Yeah.
and you had coveralls, and you're talking about snow. This week you got a life jacket. Well, I would put this on, but although it's an extra large, it's a little too small. But it's a powerful illustration. A life jacket. When we think about it, a life jacket in many ways represents our faith. Today what we're going to talk about is our faith. But more importantly, we're going to talk about faith moving us into action. Now, many of you may have seen this sign, but down on Lake Washita and on other lakes, there's a sign that says having a life jacket isn't the same as wearing one. And that's true. Doesn't matter how many life jackets we have in the boat. If the boat flips over, chances are we're most likely not going to get to a life jacket. Or, if the person driving the boat is a crazy driver and you fall out of the boat, chances are you're not going to be able to grab one as you go overboard. So it doesn't matter how many life jackets you have on the boat. If you're not wearing the life jacket, it's not going to do you any good. And it works the same way in life. Before we step out of the boat, we need our life jacket. And that life jacket is Jesus Christ. Our life-saving life jacket is our faith and our trust in Jesus Christ. This morning I want us to take a deep look at our lives. I want us to examine our faith. I want us to think about just how far will our faith in Christ cause us to go. Think of the boat this morning as your comfort zone. Where you feel comfortable in life, where you feel comfortable at church. Think of your life jacket as your faith in Christ. Now, if you have no plans of even getting in the boat, or no plans of getting out of the boat, your life jacket is not going to be needed. It's going to be useless. Just like if we didn't wear the life jacket at all. It's useless. Now I can tell you, Cameron won't ride on me with a jet ski anymore because a few years ago we were riding and he was a lot smaller than he is now. He doesn't need me to ride on a jet ski with him anymore. And we flipped the jet ski. Took a corner a little too sharp and we flipped it. And he clung on to me, and it took me 10 minutes to get the thing flipped back over because he wouldn't let go long enough for me to flip it back over, so it flooded the engine. But he had his life jacket on, but he was afraid he was going to drown. Sometimes that's how we are in life. Even though we have our life jacket on, we don't trust that life jacket. We don't trust Christ to carry us through. If we don't ever act in faith, our faith doesn't do us any good. And it doesn't do anybody else any good either. So before we start this morning, let's start by defining faith. Hebrews chapter 11:1 says, "Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see." This is the biblical definition of faith. You go and you look at a Bible dictionary, and guess which verse is the first one to pop up? Hebrews 11:1. Now this hope that we're talking about is not a hope as in saying, in my case, I hope it snows. In your case, many of your cases, I hope it's warm tomorrow. It's not a hope. It's a saying and believing in our minds and in our hearts that whether it snows or not, whether it's warm or not, God is in control. This is not wishing something's going to happen. This is knowing something is going to happen. We talked about this a little bit last week when we talked about prayer. When we pray expectantly, not hoping that God's going to answer our prayer, knowing that God is going to answer our prayers. And we've seen prayers answered this week. But let's use an example. You're going through a dark time in life. Life is hard. Life is difficult. You cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. What faith tells us is that even though we can't see that light, it's there. We know it's there, and eventually we're going to see that light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to come to the end of the tunnel, and Jesus is going to carry us through every step of the way.
Amen.
We don't see the light, but because of our faith in Jesus, we know that it's there. Or if we're on a boat, we may not see the land, but because of our faith in Jesus, we know that it's going to be there someday soon. We may not see the future, but we know that God is in control. We know that He has things in hand. We may not know what's going to happen, but we know that God knows, and we trust that He knows what's best. Faith is not hoping that something will happen. It's knowing that no matter the outcome, knowing God's in control and God is not going to fail us. That is faith. Matthew chapter 14, verses 25 through 28 says, "During the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified." Okay, now these are disciples here. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." And then Peter does what Peter does best. He says, "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. After an exhausting day, after all night being up fighting the wind and the waves on the lake, the disciples saw someone or something walking towards them on the water. And they did what's natural. They cried out in fear. Isn't that us? Sometimes Jesus calls us to do something, but instead of recognizing Him and obeying, we think to ourselves, well, that's just my imagination. Or we think to ourselves, God wouldn't call me to do that. Come on. The disciples didn't recognize Jesus walking on the water. Sometimes we don't recognize when Jesus is calling out to us. However, just as Jesus comforted the disciples by declaring that it's Him, don't be afraid, take courage, He'll do the same for us. When Jesus comes to us and He calls us to do something, He is going to reassure us. He is going to tell us not to be afraid, that He is in control. Tell us to take courage. You see, when Jesus calls us, He's not going to let us do it without Him. He's not going to let us be afraid, because He's going to fill us with His courage, with His strength. Peter, not really sure what to think, told Jesus, "If it's truly you, let me get out of the boat. Allow me to walk with your power on the water." That's us. We call out to Jesus, "Hey, if that's really you telling me to do this, let us walk in your power. Let us get out of the boat." But we stop there. We don't actually get out of the boat. We tell Him, we say, "God, I'll go wherever you want me to go. I will do whatever you call me to do And if that's you out on the water calling me, tell me to come to you, but then we don't actually get up and step out of the boat. Our faith stops because we tell Jesus that we'll follow wherever he leads, but we put restrictions on it. We tell him, we say, God, I'll go wherever you want me to go as long as I don't have to go out of my comfort zone. As long as I don't have to get out of my boat. Or we tell him, we say, God, I'll do whatever you call me to do as long as I don't have to get out of my boat. Think about it. If Peter would have said, Jesus, if that's really you, let me come to you, but never got out of the boat, what would that have proved to him? Peter would have learned nothing. The other 11 wouldn't have learned nothing. When we tell God that we will go wherever, or we will do whatever, except what we're telling him is that we don't have enough faith to trust him for the unknown. We don't have enough faith to trust him that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We don't have enough faith to trust him that if we buy the van, he'll fill the van. Because we don't get out of the boat. We tell him, hey, we'll do it, but this, and this has to happen. This, and this has to be lined up perfectly before I'll do it. And even if this, and this gets lined up perfectly, I'm still not going to get out of the boat. We're telling God that because we don't know the end result, we don't know how deep the water is, we're not going to step out in faith. We don't trust him enough to step out of the boat. But God says we need to put our faith in action. Did Peter get out of the boat? Matthew 14, first half of verse 30 says, Then Peter got down out of the boat and walked on the water and came towards Jesus. Peter got out of the boat and started walking towards Jesus. When Jesus calls us to do something, we need to get out of the boat and walk towards him. Don't just sit there like the other 11 did. Be like Peter and get out of the boat. Get out of the comfort zone. Get to work for Jesus, doing what he's called you to do. Has he called you to lead? If so, get out of the boat and start leading. Has he called you to pray? If he has, get out of the boat and start praying. Has he called you to change? If so, get out of the boat and change. Has he called you to lead change? If so, get out of the boat and lead the change. Whatever God has called you to do, get out of the boat and get to doing it. Don't tell Jesus that you'll go wherever and you'll do whatever if you don't ever plan on getting out of the boat. You don't have to worry about getting out of your comfort zone if you're never going to get out of the boat. If you don't want to leave the boat, don't worry about the life jacket. You're not going to need it. If you're not going to do what God calls you to do, what do you need faith for? But if you're willing to get out of the boat and get that life jacket, grab onto your faith and get out of the boat. Folks, Jesus is calling each of us to do something. Some of those things are not getting done because some of us never get out of the boat. Some of us still believe that it's our imagination. It's not really God calling us to do something. Some of us, even if we know it's God calling us to do something, we're running for our lives. We are running and hiding in fear. But you can't hide from God. Peter put his faith into action and he got out of the boat. We need to get out of the boat too. James chapter 2, verses 14 through 19 says, "What good is it, my brothers, if a man claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save him? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes or daily food. If one of you says to him, 'Go, I wish you well, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about his physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if not accompanied by action, is dead. But someone will say, 'You have faith, I have deeds. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by what I do.' You believe that there's one God? Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder." You can talk about your faith all day long. I'm going to show you my faith. Can deedless faith save? Right there, the Bible tells us no. Because true faith will cause us to act. True faith in Jesus will cause us to get out of the boat. A false faith, a deedless faith will cause us to stay put. Cause us to stay in that comfort zone. Someone is in need, and God calls for us to meet that need. Be it somebody's hungry, somebody needs clothes, somebody needs something from us, and all we do is simply pray for them and send them on their way, we're not doing them any good. We're telling them to swim over to the next boat. We're not getting out of our boat to help you, but you can swim over to that boat, they might help you. Not only do we do nothing to help those in need, but we're not obeying God's call, thus proving that our faith is useless. When Jesus tells us to get out of the boat and we stay put, we don't honestly trust Him. Peter got out of the boat. Are we going to get out of the boat? James tells us that faith without action is dead. We can tell God that we'll go wherever, we'll do whatever He calls us to do all day long, but if we don't actually get out of the boat and do what He calls us to do, our faith is dead. Many claim to have a strong faith, but when God calls them to do something with that faith, they don't even reach for the life jacket, much less think about getting out of the boat. We tell people all day long that we have faith in Christ and we refuse to budge. All the while, other people are proving their faith by getting out and getting to work. We don't have to talk about our faith at all if our actions, our deeds, and our works demonstrate our faith. If we truly are the hands and feet of Christ, we will be moving. We will be stepping out on faith. We will be getting out of the boat, putting that faith into action. When God calls us to get out of the boat, our actions will show our faith or lack thereof. Folks, even the demons believe in God. It's one thing to believe. It's another thing to act on that belief. It's one thing to say you have faith. It's another thing to put that faith into action. True faith will act. Will trust that God is in control and will make us to get out of the boat. But what about when we face a difficult time? What about when we face the deep waters of life? See, Peter got out of the boat and all was going well until, continuing in Matthew 14, verses, the second half of verse 30 through verse 32, it says, "But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. Cried out, 'Lord, save me.' Immediately Jesus reached out to him and caught him. 'You have little faith,' he said. 'Why did you doubt?' When they climbed into the boat, the wind died down." See, when the wind took Peter's attention off of Jesus, he started to fear. He started to sink. Right before Jesus called Peter to get out of the boat, he told him not to be afraid, to take courage. But it didn't take long for life to get in the way and draw Peter's eyes off of Christ. Life does the same for us. Sometimes we do obey and we get out of the boat, but then life gets in the way. Sometimes our health gets in the way. Sometimes our age gets in the way. Our finances get in the way. Our lack of faith gets in the way. Our trials and difficult times get in the way. We take our eyes off of Jesus and we begin to sink. We begin to stop doing what He's called us to do. We begin to start doing things our own way. We begin to focus on the problem and the situation, and we sink further and further and further. Just as Peter began to sink, he cried out to Jesus to save him. But sometimes we let the water get over our head before we call out to Jesus. Sometimes we allow life to bury us so deep before we call out to Jesus. See, that's when our life jackets of faith are going to come in handy. Because without the life jacket, we're just going to sink further and further and deeper and deeper. But with that life jacket of faith, even if we go under for a little bit, it's going to pull us right back to the top. And Jesus is our life jacket. Even when the troubles of life get in the way, He'll keep us afloat. He'll keep us from allowing our heads to go underwater. He'll keep us from drowning. Even when we can't see the land. Even when we can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, we can trust that Jesus is going to keep us going. He's going to keep our head above water. He's going to keep us going in the right direction. But if we never get out of the boat, we never put our faith in action, our faith is never going to be tested by the winds of life. If Peter had never gotten out of the boat, he never would have faced the wind. His faith never would have been tested. There was 11 other guys that never got out of the boat. But once he began to sink, his faith caused him to cry out to Jesus for help. Then Jesus asked Peter, said, "Why did you doubt? Why do we doubt? We doubt because our faith has never been tested. We've never gotten out of the boat. We've never fully put our trust in Christ. If we want our faith to grow, we better get out of the boat." After Jesus got back into the boat, the wind died down. See, the wind was there to demonstrate the power of Jesus. The winds of our life are there to show us the power of Jesus. And when He calls us to heaven, when He calls us home, when He calls us back into the boat, the winds will cease. And we will receive our reward for our faith. We will see what we hoped for, but had not yet seen. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight." When the winds of life blow, our eyes must remain focused on Jesus. We may ask, why did Jesus call me out of the boat to do this? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? We may never have the answers to those questions. We may never understand. We may not have the answers on this side of heaven. But we can trust that God is in control. We can acknowledge Him in everything we do. We can acknowledge Him when we face the winds of life, when we find ourselves in deep water, when we find ourselves in the dark tunnel, in the trials of life. We can trust that God is in control. And even if we don't understand, even if we can't see the light, when we get out of the boat, no matter what we face, God's going to guide our path. He's going to keep us on the right track, and He's going to keep us focused on the task that He's called us to do. When we get out of the boat, we may not know exactly where God is taking us, but we can trust that His will is being done, and He's not going to lead us in the wrong direction. We have to put on our life jacket of faith in Christ, and we have to get out of the boat. We cannot tell God that we're going to go wherever and do whatever He calls us to do and not do it. Our faith will not grow if we don't do what God tells us to do. Our faith will never be put into action if we never get out of the boat. Our faith is never going to be tested if we never get out of the boat. This morning, Jesus is calling you to put on your life jacket of faith and get out of the boat. This morning, do you feel God is calling you into action, but you don't want to move? Maybe you got out of the boat, but you got right back in when life began to happen. Jesus never said, go back to the boat when life gets tough. He said, hold on to Him. Keep your eyes on Him. We may not understand why He's calling us to do what we're doing. We may not understand the difficult times that we face, but no matter what happens, God is in control. And our life jacket of faith is going to keep us going. Step out of the boat. Get to doing what God has called you to do. And don't wait any longer. This morning, I ask you, are you willing to get out of the boat? Are you willing, truly, honestly willing to go where God calls you to go? To do what God calls you to do? We put limits on Him, but He won't limit us. God's power does some amazing things if we allow Him to work that power through us. We can change our community if we get out of the boat. But we're not going to do anything sitting in the boat.